Good afternoon, everyone. This is Michelle Hughes from Ageless and Timeless. I have Dr. Purita with me today, and I just want everybody to know, if you don't already know who he is, that he is probably the granddaddy, or at least the father of orthopedic regenerative medicine. And I met him, actually, I met his assistant at the Bradfest show about a year ago. And I was just so taken by all of that I learned about them that I made an appointment to go see them in Boca Raton. But unfortunately, that trip got canceled at the last minute. So, Dr. Purita, I haven't met you yet, but I'm really looking forward to meeting you in person.
Well, at least you got me on Zoom, but in person will be better eventually.
Well, not only that, but you were the subject of our most recent Top Doctor magazine article. All right, well, let's dive in. Okay, so I want first, there's so much to talk about with you. I mean, it's truly amazing how much you've accomplished. But let's start with a little bit of history about who you are and how you got to where you are today. So just give us a thumbnail of who
Sure,
is
so
Dr. Farida.
I went to college and med school at Georgetown University,
Yeah.
orthopedic residency, University of Miami, and board certified in orthopedic surgery and regenerative medicine. I was the inaugural president of the American Academy and Board of Regenerative Medicine. I've been practicing it for a few decades now. I started initially with cellular therapies, but I've now expanded my horizon to include many anti-aging therapies because there's such an overlap. I mean, I had an aha moment once where I saw a slide that has stem cell aging pathways. I said, well, the way stem cells age is the way we age, and just one thing led to another.
Well, the interesting thing about you and that little thumbnail history is that you started out as allopathic, traditional medical orthopedic surgeon, correct? And you made
Well,
the
I did, but you
transition.
know what? The bug was in me even when I was a resident. I was doing stuff like I was doing laser discectomies and I was using chymopapine and discs when I was still a resident, way back, 40 years ago, whatever. So I've always had the bug, so to speak, that knowing that, yeah, we have to push horizons. We have to move the envelope.
And what was it that got that bug to be in your consciousness?
Well, I guess it's something I've always been interested in, the cutting edge of the cutting edge. Even when I was in grammar school, I was always, saying, well, how about doing this and doing that? So, always liked that concept. I never was satisfied for the status quo.
Mm-hmm. Right. So that's one uniqueness about you. So so the next step after you had your aha moment, which I guess was actually way back into your residency from what you just said, were there other aha moments that have basically transformed you into who you are today, and what were they?
Right. So basically, way back when I was doing, joint replacements and a lot of sports medicine, and somehow or other I came across something called PRP. This was many years ago, and I said,
Yeah.
this makes, I got to look into this. And I said, wow, that makes all the sense in the world because this is really how nature heals things. I have one of my slides, I say, cells, not doctors, heal patients. And that's so true. No matter what procedure you have, be it open heart surgery or joint replacement or anything, ultimately your cells have to heal you. And if it's not your cells healing you, you're not going to heal.
Right.
And then I realized that, and I said, well, this is just what nature does. And then, I remember, listen, people were making a lot of fun of me initially when I started doing these things. And I said, well, guys, don't make fun of me because you just don't know the science, because this is how nature heals things. It uses these growth factors, it uses pathways. And
Mm-hmm.
one thing came to another. And, a lot of that, hesitation on people, kind of melted away. And people that used to make fun of me now say, hey, can I come and train with you? So kind of,
It's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I was on the advisory board with Dr. Barry Sears way back when. I don't know if you remember him, but he's yeah, so he's the Sears diet and the Zone diet. But anyway, told me he was lecturing at A4M, and he said his colleagues used to laugh at him because he was one of the first people to talk about inflammation. And they, so what it's like to have resistance and to deal with the monolithic organizations that can basically discredit you, but yet you hang in there and you continue to fight the fight. And, because you have the facts behind you and the science. And then at the end of the day, people are now coming to you for
You
the
hit it right
advice
in
that
the
they
head.
once laughed at.
You have the facts and science behind you. And that's
Yeah.
what always protects you. When all's
Yeah.
done, you have those two comrades, you're going to do fine.
Well, I think you said that you might do an analogy here, a metaphor that the host computer is are the cells, the mitochondria, and the software are the sirtuins and the APMK and that. So why
Exactly
don't you
right.
explain that to us a little?
So I tell people, I said, listen, think about it. I like to use practical terms sometimes. I said, when you have a problem with your computer, what do you really do? You say, oh, well, we'll just shut it down and reboot it. And I
Right.
think that's exactly what we're doing in regenerative medicine. I tell patients, think of your organs and cells as the computer hardware, and these pathways in the body are the computer software. And all we're trying to do is reboot those and make them work properly. So we
Right.
want to kind of get rid of some of these, glitches, so to speak. And I think it's a good analogy, and it really is very succinct in what we try to accomplish in regenerative medicine.
Hmm. Well, let's dive a little deeper into that concept because it's very important to people to understand what exactly, if you dissect that. So let's start with PRP, platelet-rich plasma. Why don't you define that for us and tell us how that is one of the
Okay.
pathways for?
So basically, platelet-rich plasma is platelets are in your blood. Okay, we all know that. Now, we used to always say, okay, you get a cut, you put pressure on it, and you say, oh, okay, let me put pressure. Ah, good, it finally formed a clot. And that used to be the idea that platelets formed a clot, and then we dismissed them, and that was it. So far from the truth. Now, platelets are, basically a cornucopia of growth factors that really can enhance and influence healing dramatically. They can call in stem cells to the area. They can reduce inflammation to the area. So there's so many different things. And these growth factors, there's a multitude. We don't even know all the growth factors in there, come from the release of the platelets when they start releasing these growth factors. There's also, people may have heard of terms called exosomes and things like that. Platelets have more exosomes than any other source of the body. So they're a very rich source of exosomes. So there's so many things that we get it. So they can influence healing dramatically. Okay. You really need them. You need them in certain ways. You need them, concentrated. Uh, Again, it's the body's soup. That's what I call it, the regenerative soup. It's a main ingredient of the regenerative soup.
Hmm. So tell everybody what an exosome is.
Exosome is a kind of a little packet of information. Sometimes they have something called messenger RNA, things like that. Sometimes, believe it or not, what exosomes are their mitochondria that are floating around in your circulation. The mitochondria now, remember, are the energy producing parts of the cell. They're like little factories that produce energy, and the energy in this case is ATP,
Right.
is the body's, energy currency, as I call it.
Right.
And
Right.
and that's maybe one of the ways that we think stem cells may actually work. What we're thinking now is that stem cells, when you put them into a patient, they may be transferring mitochondria from cells that are kind of, to them, I should say, cells that are kind of
Yes.
deficient mitochondria, and they can reevaluate them
Yes.
and rejuvenate them by that method.
Right, right. So if you take the platelet-rich plasma and you put it, you extract it from the
From the
body and then re-inject it, and that's what plasmapheresis is, correct?
No, absolutely not. No, much different. Okay.
No. Okay.
PRP is
Okay.
basically we're taking
Explain
the
it to us.
blood and we're spinning it down. We're centrifuging it. We're throwing away a lot of the red blood cells, some of the other cells, some of the plasma, and we're concentrating the platelets with plasma. So it's called platelet-rich plasma. Now we use that in conjunction
Okay.
with other things such as stem cells from fat, from bone marrow, things like that, and we'll put it into a joint. And it's a regenerative soup that we have. Now, the other tricks that we do and that I've really been pioneering in is what we call photobiomodulation. Now, what does that mean in everyday
Mm-hmm.
English? Well, basically, we're using
Mm.
light
Right.
therapy to enhance the
Right.
results of these cells. It basically makes them healthier, makes them able to withstand stresses more. A joint is a very stressful area for a cell, and it gives them a better chance
Right.
of survival and things like that.
Today's podcast is brought to you by International Anti-Aging Systems and Profound Health. The founder, Phil Mickens, has been a guest on Ageless and Timeless, and those who know him personally, as I am so fortunate to do, can attest to his knowledge, experience, authenticity, and his passion to help make the world a better place, with a commitment to work profoundly to improve our health. I personally have used the peptide bioregulators, some of his hormones, and his skincare products, and I can attest to their efficacy. If you want those unique and value-added evidence-based health products, then IAS and Profound Health are your number one resource. We're going to flash on the screen the different websites that you can use in order to order their products. And no matter which website you go to and which products you order, please use the Ageless code for a 15% discount. I'm glad you brought that up, because this whole thing about photobiomodulation has become one of the darlings of the energy of functional medicine world. And there's so much there's a lot of charlatanism about these products. There's so many of them available. What do you use to discern the efficacy of a red, let's just say red, blue light therapy, if you were choosing for consumer use?
About 20 minutes ago, I just put out an article on LinkedIn. I put a lot of things on LinkedIn, and it was about the use of red light, basically infrared and red light, like 630. Now that number 630 means it's the color of the light, and basically it's the wavelength. And this study showed that this dramatically improved the health of the stem cells. Now, for the actual consumer, what I would recommend is you can look in some light panels, and you want to get a panel that's both red and infrared. And maybe 20 minutes a day, and spend a bit of money on it, because it's worth it. This is one of the easy treatments you can do in your own home that really makes a difference. It can make a difference. And the reason why you want infrared also is because it penetrates deeper into your body. Okay, so it's going to help you maybe with aging of your skin, but it's also going to help you with aging inside also, which is very important. Now, we have some other treatments we can get into a little bit, where we actually put the entire circulatory system, we treat that with light, with photomodulation. So many different things that we do here.
Well, I have friends with far. Oh, I have a far infrared sauna, but my neighbor up the street has one, and they have the red light panel right in the infrared sauna. So that's kind of a cool thing, I think.
Here,
do you think that the heat?
Well, the heat can make some difference also, but again, for red light and infrared, it's more the light wavelength. Okay.
Yes.
Now,
yeah.
However, let's get into another topic that's very germane to what we're talking about. When you start talking about, a sauna that heats up, maybe gets to 150, 155 degrees, you now get something called heat shock proteins. Now, that's kind of a misnomer, because you can get them from heat, you can get them from cold. You really get these things from stress. Now, what do, these heat and cold shock proteins? They act as little helicopters. They hover over a protein to make sure that it folds properly into the cell. Misfolded proteins are responsible for many different diseases, including many of the neurodegenerative diseases. And remember, if the proteins misfold into your mitochondria, that's like having a power plant that basically most of the equipment is not working well, and it's not going to produce any power. So that's why you get a lot of good benefits, in addition to reducing inflammation and things like that. So there's so many benefits that you get from the infrared saunas. I mean, it's a good thing between the light, the heat, etc., many different things.
Yeah, I do mine every single day. It's like, everybody has a bit of a routine, right? When you're in this world of regenerative medicine and looking for all the methodologies that you can do at home. So I have a hyperbaric chamber that I purchased, really because I had a biking accident, so I did it for a purpose, but now I just use it preventatively about 3 times a week. So what do you think about hyperbarics, and how do you use those in your practice?
Well, I'll tell you how I think about it. We have 2 chambers, so that tells you something. We have a lay-down chamber.
Well, I guess that's a good answer.
And it's a hard shell, knock on wood. And then we also have a new unit that you can actually walk into, and it seats 2 people.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what mine is a vertical, not a horizontal.
No, ours is like a little, you think you're in an airplane once you close it up. Okay.
Oh,
It's beautiful seats and everything. But let's talk a little bit about the science of hyperbaric oxygen.
yes, yes, I'd like to hear that. Go
Most
ahead.
people, including a lot of doctors, they say, well, what it does because oxygen's under pressure, so it makes more oxygen dissolve into the blood because your hemoglobin is the only thing that can carry oxygen. Once it's
Mhm.
once it's bound with oxygen, that's it, no more. But if you have it under pressure, the oxygen gets into the plasma part, which is the watery part of the blood, and it can deliver more oxygen to the tissue, which is a very important thing. But possibly what's even more important comes from the work of, he's a physician at the University of Pennsylvania. His name is Dr. Thom, Thom. He had a very classic study. What he said is the real mechanism of hyperbaric oxygen is that it increases nitric oxide production in the body, which
Yeah.
then stimulates the bone marrow to release a lot more stem cells. So, for instance, he showed over 20 treatments of hyperbaric oxygen, your bone marrow releases 8 times more stem cells than it normally would. That's dramatic. Okay.
Hmm.
Now, a little pearl
Hmm.
that I'll send to everybody out there. There's a compound, or I should say a supplement that we use. It's called Neo 40, NEO dash the number 40, which is a nitric
Hmm.
oxide stimulator. So every time
Hmm.
someone goes into the chamber, we give them one of those also, so we can increase the amount of nitric oxide produced. I call this Neo 40, I call it the poor man's hyperbaric chamber because it's producing nitric
Hmm.
oxide. So it's a good thing.
Yeah, I had Nathan Bryan has, I don't know if you know
I know
Nathan
Nathan well.
Bryan from
I know him
N1.
very well. Yes.
Yeah, so his lozenge, I take
Yeah.
one every
It's
single day.
it's very similar to Neo 40. I mean, Neo 40 is actually the one that was originally made. That's the one that University of Texas did all the research on with
Hmm.
Dr. Arad, who won the Nobel Prize in it.
Hmm.
And that was what they basically the Human Company, which is the name of the company that produces it, has the patent from the University of Texas. They're utilizing.
Right. So what, I don't know if you believe in those little strips, but
Absolutely,
Nathan,
believe it. It's true. That's absolutely true. No question about
so I take them and I tell everybody, if you're taking nitric oxide, be sure you just test yourself on the strip so you see what's happening. And I remember at one of the shows I did it and it was kind of mid-range. Then I started taking his product and the next time I did it was off the charts.
it. Yeah, no,
So
absolutely.
it
I'll tell you
works.
another quick little story about, nitric oxide. Anytime I travel overseas, that's one of my go-to things. I'll
Yes.
take 6 to 8 pills. Plus, I use a little watch that kind of shines light on my radial and all my arteries,
Yeah.
and I get no jet lag. I mean, I literally flew 19 hours from Chennai, India, back to Boca Raton last week, and I came right to my office and saw patients all day without any jet lag. It
Is
worked.
that little watch one that you can share with us what it
Yeah,
is?
it's called a TheraLumen. I don't have one here, but I work with them also. It does photomodulation on your radial and ulnar artery. It doesn't tell the time. It just I mean, this is an old one type like this is what it looks like.
Uh-huh.
Unfortunately, this one I don't think is operational, but it does work and it works very well.
Yeah, so Dr. Do you know Bob Weber, Robert Weber
I know
from
Dr. Weber
Germany?
very well. Yes,
Yeah, so he sent me his.
yeah,
It's called Eco something. It's one of their newer because they tend to be more of a medical products company, but they have now a consumer division.
hmm.
So is that the same? Is that similar?
No,
The
this is different. This is, I'm gonna be honest with you, it's a little more powerful. And
the
it,
one you have,
yeah, it's the TheraLumen, it's called. It's
Theralumen. Okay,
yeah,
I'm going to put that in the show notes so people know. And then Neo,
Neo
uh,
40,
Neo
made
40.
by the
Okay,
company
so those,
UMANN.
yeah.
Another great product.
Yeah, okay. So what do you think about NAD and doing NAD as an IV therapy? There seems to be a lot of controversy about whether or not it's efficacious to use it as that it's too big a molecule to be absorbed orally, but that IV is possible, but that it then disappears very quickly. So what's your
Oh,
thought about your
my
thinking
feeling
about
is
NAD?
I'm not convinced you can take NAD orally. Now, some people have just sent me some liposomal version of it. We'll see, but
Yeah,
I'm still,
yeah,
yeah, I think
Quicksilver.
so.
Yeah,
Because
I know.
basically what you have to do, and even NMN, which is an oral supplement,
Yeah,
does not get in the cell either.
I
The
know.
only thing that gets in the cell is NR. Now there are some NMN that can get into certain cells. Okay, interesting. So really, the best thing to do if you're taking orally is to take NR and NMN. I'm actually
What is NR, Dr. Purita?
nicotinamide ribose.
Oh,
Okay,
okay. So that's the original
it's the
form,
first
right?
step, and then NMN is the second step, and NAD is the
Yeah.
third. Now,
Okay.
I just designed a supplement that has a number of different compounds in it, of which it has NR and NMN. So that's good. But I still think the gold standard to me is intravenous NAD.
Okay.
That's
So what about the controversy today that it doesn't last? A half hour later or whatever, your body has, has used it, whatever little bit it can get from it, but it isn't going to
No,
be long
I
lasting.
think it gets absorbed. It may take a little time. Now, we have some tricks that we do here, though, that make it a lot easier. Okay. First of all, we give the patient TMG, trimethylglycine,
Yes.
methylating agent. That makes the NAD go down easier.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, which is totally unique to us, we photoactivate our NAD with a violet light. That, cha
Ah,
that changes the molecule shape a little bit and it kicks an electron up and it makes it much easier to get into the cell. So we have
mm,
much less symptomatology. And the other crazy thing, but it does work, and I suggest anybody out there try it when you're doing intravenous NAD, is sip on coffee at the same time.
why?
You'll you'll dramatically be able to increase the speed it takes to do the NAD.
Why is
You're
that?
not exactly sure. We think that it has something to do with changing the molecule a bit with the caffeine probably and things like that. So it works. I can tell you that. Just I suggest you try it. But NAD is
Okay. What What
yeah,
about the fact that when you do an NAD IV, you get really nauseous and
that's
what is the reason for
my
that?
whole point because you're basically getting like a methyl reaction. So my whole point is you take the TMG, you basically photoactivate it, and you sip on the coffee, and you're going to get very little of those symptoms.
That's
We
interesting.
we have
Wow.
we've increased it. I should say we've increased the time it takes or decreased the time by about 70% with those couple of
Okay,
tricks.
so an example like this, Dr. Purita, how did you come about knowing, discovering this? What was the?
Sometimes sometimes it's better to be lucky than good, as the old saying goes. Again, I'm always interested in photobiomodulation. I came up with a instrument called the Pure Light that we use to photomodulate any of our biologics that go into a joint or whatever. And then I
Mhm.
started thinking, I wonder if this would work for some IV compounds because I know, for instance, methylene blue, if you're familiar with that,
Of
people
course,
will
yeah.
get intravenous methylene blue, then go on a red light bed because it really makes it work better. So I
Hmm.
said, well, how about if we photo activate it ahead of time? And
Hmm.
lo and behold, so what we do now is we get our methylene blue from the compounding pharmacy. We put
Hmm.
it in CC syringe, put it in the red light for about 3.5 minutes at a certain frequency. And lo and behold, then we give it intravenously and voila, we've had photoactivated methylene blue before it even goes into the patient. And then I started experimenting and looking around. We started doing it again with NAD, and we discovered, hey, this is really affecting the patients in a very positive way. They're able to tolerate this NAD a lot easier. And then we've done it with curcumin and a couple of other things.
So if we wanted to get your product, because not everybody can do the IVs, but they want the NAD, and I've used the Quicksilver Scientific liposomal, but I don't think I'm getting. I don't know. I can't. I mean, I'm
I'm
not.
still not convinced
Yeah.
that you're
So
getting
can
a
we? How do we know your product that you just developed with the NR and the NMN and
oh,
the?
okay. That's going to be from the human company, and what I like about that is, I'm addressing a lot of different things. What I get concerned about, there's a lot of clinics out there that don't look at the whole picture. When you're giving NAD to a patient, are you familiar with senescent cells?
Of
These are
course, yeah.
zombie cells. Okay. Well, realize now when you start
Zombie
zombie
cells,
cells, okay.
right?
So when you're
Yeah.
giving NAD, you're actually making those zombie cells a little healthier, which is not necessarily a good
Mhm.
thing. You need some zombie cells, but
Right.
not a lot of them. So we make
Right.
sure we always give quercetin at the end of our NAD because
Hmm.
that will help get rid of some of these zombie cells. It'll keep them at bay, not make them too healthy. But the formula that I've made, which is going to be a powder that you can mix with water, we have some quercetin, we have some Apigen, I think it's called, which there's a certain type of cell as we get older, it is a huge consumer of NAD. It's called a CP38, a type of
Yes.
and that consumes NAD like crazy. And
Right.
if you keep those cells at bay, you're going to be able to get much more NAD that your body can use. Remember, there's an old saying that every 20 years of life, your NAD level goes down 50%.
I know, that's scary, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so.
So you look at David Sinclair's research on resveratrol and NAD. So how do you synchronize your thinking with what he's been doing at Harvard for all
I
these
think he's
years?
got, I think he's on the mark for the most part. The only thing I disagree with him a bit is about resveratrol. I think terstilbin, spelled with a P, is a better alternative because it's much more bioavailable.
What
But I
and
think
what is that?
it's called terstilbin, but the P is
Oh, I
silent.
know what that is. Yeah.
Okay. However, what we have in our office here, for those that are interested, is we have intravenous resveratrol, which
Uh,
get into your system. So we're always kind of pushing the envelope, looking for these oddities that we know can make a difference.
well, didn't the FDA ban NAD at one point from IVs?
They may have, I'm not sure. I'm not aware of. I know they were trying to ban NMN because
Uh,
we got some studies that say it's going to be a drug, so you can no longer put it as a supplement. I don't know where that's ended up. I don't know.
what's happened to that? Okay, so this is so fascinating, and I want to make sure we cover a lot of ground. Could you
Sure.
tell us those two products that we can get at your? I want to have that in the show notes. I want to be sure I write it down. The two products you just mentioned we can get from you.
Well, I'm not sure which one. We mentioned a lot of products.
The one with the oral NAD with the NM and
Oh yeah, well
NM and
that's in the process right now being made. I suspect it should be. It's by the company Human, and it should be
human.
ready in another, yeah, hopefully another 2, 3 months. They're just doing the final stages of it now.
And should people be taking quercetin anyway, just as an oral supplement, just because of the what it does for the?
Yeah, I just the only thing I don't like about quercetin, I don't like you to take it continuously. I think to take it and then kind of give yourself a break is superb. Now,
Uh,
here's the other interesting thing about quercetin. A lot of people may take a Myers cocktail drip, which
yeah,
has
yeah,
zinc in it.
yeah.
The problem with that, though, is zinc has trouble getting into the cell. It has trouble penetrating the membrane.
Right.
But quercetin can act as a chaperone and get it right into that cell, and it's going to do you good for your immune system. So,
Oh, okay. So is
why?
that so orally? If you're taking quercetin, you should take zinc as well,
Well,
because
you should take zinc anyway, every
yeah, I
day.
take zinc every day, but I don't. I
A lot
haven't
of
been
times
taking.
you're having difficulty getting it into the cell because it's
Yeah.
not very easy. You use a little quercetin with it, and you're going to get that good.
I mean, you're bringing up something that I think is really problematic in the supplement world, and that is, you could be taking all these supplements, but are you absorbing them? And is your body, toxicity causing that, or the inflammation causing that? So, how do you, like you said, you take a handful of supplements. How do you ensure that those supplements are getting to the cells where they need to be?
Listen, I'm hoping that the companies I'm using are very reputable companies. I mean, I've really vetted them out, and I think they're good. I mean, I don't know for sure. I've not done any testing, although I mean, I've done an occasional test here and there. For instance, I did a test of my NAD once, intracellular NAD, and
Hmm.
it came as that of a teenager. So I said, well, I'm doing something right, so I didn't worry. So I think they're working. I mean, you must be careful, and you don't always go for the cheapest price in supplements. Use
Right.
reputable companies. That's the real key here.
Right. I tell everyone to go to Full Script, and they have some of the very best. So what are
Yeah.
just, if you don't mind sharing, what are some of the brand names of the ones that you know
I
are
tell you what I like a
efficacious?
lot, and I think they're very reputable, is Thorn Research. Very reputable
Yeah, I
company.
use them a lot.
And I use
Yeah.
Human. And there's a newer company that I like. It's called Codage, Codeage. They have some
Yeah,
pretty good.
I've been using them.
What I like
Yeah.
about theirs,
Kodiak. I thought it was, yeah, they have a urolithin A product. Have you
I
tried
was
that?
going to mention it to you. That's to me one
Yeah.
of the go-to supplements, okay? Because of the fact
Yeah.
that it does mitophagy and mitogenesis. That is
Yeah.
critical. And I take that supplement every day without fail.
Me
Except on
too.
the weekends, I give myself a break. I don't take any supplements at all. The only thing
Right.
I take 7 days a week is Neo 40, the nitric oxide stimulator.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so you and I are doing very much the same thing. So what about well, and also Kodiak, their competitor is Timeline,
Right.
which, the Urolithin A, they're good. They're very expensive. I mean, I
It's
just
very
bought,
expensive.
yeah,
And I'm not
180.
sure if it's worth it, but I don't know. I haven't used their product much. I like
Yeah,
the
I bought the powder and the gummies and the capsules. I bought all three. So that was a big investment, but it'll last me for a few
It is.
months.
Yeah, definitely. But it's a good one
So,
to take.
okay. So if someone was coming to your clinic, so let's just go, let me backtrack. You have a clinic in Boca Raton, that the one that
Right.
I was going to come to, called Pureform, Purform.
That's
And
correct.
you are the chief medical officer. You
That's correct.
also, do you still have your Cayman Island
I still
clinic?
go to Cayman Islands. Yeah, as a matter of fact, I was talking to my partner there today. So yes, I'm still involved with that.
And you also have one in Istanbul, and that you work
No,
with
no,
one.
Istanbul, I visit. It's a clinic that we set up EBO2 on. And
Yeah.
I came to, they invited me to go. So I went and I gave them some pointers on some stuff that I thought would work even better for them.
Okay. Okay. So it's called One Health, right? If people are
I believe so.
looking.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay. Okay. But it's both basically Pureform, where we're going to dive in right
Yeah,
now.
right.
So, okay. So let's just take a hypothetical patient that walks in your door, and you've never treated that patient, but that patient's a weekend warrior, not a professional athlete, but has had their share of injuries, but they're very pro health, and they're not sick. They're just wanting to stay well and age gracefully. So if you were designing a program for someone like that, which is, I think, more of the type of viewer that I have on my podcast, that's why I'm using that as the prototype. So what would happen? What would be the treatment protocols that, if a person wanted to spend a day with you to start out?
Well, obviously we'd have to examine them and go over their history and everything. But let's say we've done that and they say, look, I'm just basically wanting to do stuff for general well-being. I want to increase my health span.
Yes.
Say, okay, fine. So what I typically recommend for those people right off the bat, what I say to myself, what can I give this patient the biggest bang for his buck? So that to me is EbO2,
Hmm.
extracorporeal blood oxygenation and ozonation.
Right. So say that again, because people need to know that extra
Extracorporeal
corporeal.
blood oxygenation and ozonation,
Yeah.
EbO2.
So that's why it's a two, because it's oxygenation and ozonation.
Right.
Okay.
So what we
Okay.
do is basically, in a nutshell, you have one IV that leaves the arm, the blood's being pulled by a pump. The blood then enters a dialysis filter that's flipped upside down, where the blood enters the bottom and
Yeah.
ozone gas enters the top. No ozone ever enters the body because ozone can be
Right.
fairly toxic to you. But the ozone
Right.
reacts with the blood and it gets converted to oxygen and a number of other compounds. Another compound that gets converted to, believe it or not, is hydrogen peroxide,
Hmm.
which is momentarily, it doesn't last that long, but it's a very potent stimulator of our immune system.
Hmm.
Now, another thing that I very much like about EbO2 is it will stimulate something called the NRF2 pathway, which is the major pathway in your body that reduces inflammation.
Hmm.
This is what we call a transcription factor. What does that mean in everyday English? Well, a transcription factor is kind of a compound, a protein that hangs out in the cytoplasm, let's say, and given a certain signal, it then travels into the nucleus and then goes to the genes and it tells them to start transcribing things. It basically makes them make certain compounds. In this case, it makes compounds to reduce inflammation in our body. So that's why I like that. But the other nice thing about ozone, a couple of things. The ozone itself can really attack viruses and molds. It can damage their cell membranes, leaving their RNA and DNA exposed. And next thing you know, those things are not going to be long on this earth.
Hmm.
And then the blood goes into a hemolumin machine, which is an apparatus that subjects the blood to six different color lights: red, infrared, blue, green, ultraviolet A, ultraviolet C. The
Hmm.
ultraviolet C can really finish off any other organisms that may be in your blood. And then the blood goes back via the other arm. So the process, once the IVs are in, takes about 45 minutes. And it's something that we find works exceptionally well. It can really get rid of a lot of inflammation in the body, diminish viral loads. It gets rid of a lot of microtoxins, forever chemicals, hard metals and things like that, heavy metals, I should say.
Hmm.
So, a very good thing to do.
So how do you compare that to plasmapheresis?
All right, so very interesting question and a good question. So, EbO2 is more like an oil filtration system. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
like the oil filter in your car filters the oil and gets rid of a lot of toxins. Plasmapheresis is the oil change.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're doing in that case is we're taking maybe 2 to 3 liters of plasma, and literally throwing away, and we're replacing it with albumin. Now,
Mm-hmm.
let me just say a little bit about albumin because some patients get a bit upset about it. Albumin is a product made from blood, but
Mm-hmm.
it's sterilized and pasteurized, so there are zero organisms in it. So you don't have to worry that you're going to maybe get an infection from a virus or something like that. Nope, no, none of those things to worry about.
Okay. So what happens then? What's the difference between EBO2 and the plasmapheresis at the end result? I mean,
Well,
one
I
you
think
need to do
they complement each
them
other.
together. What I'm really asking.
They really do complement each other because the EBO2 can really get rid of a lot of these toxins and mold and things like that. Whereas the plasmapheresis is just basically changing things. It's not necessarily stimulating pathways like EBO2 does. EBO2 is more of a complicated process when all's said and done because it's stimulating a number of different pathways. Plasmapheresis is basically pretty, straightforward. It's just removing some of the plasma and throwing it away and replacing it with albumin.
Mhm.
Hopefully, well,
So why is it that people say when they take the plasmapheresis they get a white foam uh, out of in their blood? What is that? Is that toxicity?
I think you mean EBO2. That's where you get
Oh,
that.
maybe it's the EBO2. Okay, I
Yes.
just remember reading that
So,
one
all
time.
right. So those are some of the waste products in there.
Okay.
And they're basically a number of different things. We've sent them to a company, the fluid that we take out, you'll see it's a little canister, and we've analyzed it. It's a lot of mycotoxins, forever chemicals, all sorts of things like that, that we're
Mhm.
getting out of there.
So it's like when people go and do those foot baths and the water turns black. That's
Yeah, I've
usually
seen, I don't know how that works though, but I did see it. I was kind of impressed.
yeah. I mean I've tried it once, and I mean everybody's feet the water turns black.
Yeah,
So
I don't know the mechanism. I mean, I'm trying to figure out, I said, I don't know.
scientifically, right, right. So okay, so those are the two things you would recommend if someone walks in your door that's
Well,
healthy and
not necessarily plasma. I mean, plasmapheresis is a little more money. I mean, right off the bat, I'd recommend the EBO2. Now, what I should mention to you also is we have a newer technique with that now. Once we do the EBO2, we usually encourage the patient, as soon as that's done, to then do an intravenous of phosphatidylcholine.
oh
Because remember now, a lot of your health is determined by the cell membrane. And
right,
what we want to do is, the EBO2 could affect the cell membrane so much. So we want to immediately repair it. But also, when you're giving phosphatidylcholine, it has a tendency to drive out even more of the toxins. So that's
right.
a cool part. And then we might give them some methylene blue, depending on, their status. We might give them NAD and things like that. So that's typically the first thing I would do. And you always want to do an EBO2 first rather than plasmapheresis. The plasmapheresis should be done a few days after the EBO2.
I got it. So basically, the IV, I mean, the EBO2, basically you're going to get an oil change, and then you're adding in the good nutrients to
EBO2 is the oil filtration,
oil filtration. That's what I meant.
but we're getting a lot of rid of that. And then the plasmapheresis is the oil change.
I'm sorry, I missed
That's
said
okay,
that.
no problem.
Yeah. So okay, but the IV introduces the good nutrients to replace what the
Exactly.
filtration has just removed.
Exactly right. We use a lot of phosphatidylcholine here. The actual other name for it, the kind of the common name is Plaquex, because it does seem to help get rid of plaque and heavy metals and things like that. And we have a
Uh,
regimen.
do you take phosphatidylcholine daily on as or during
No,
the
I've been thinking about it, and quite honestly, I just haven't gotten around to do it, but it's probably not a bad idea to take it.
yeah? Do you take it along with if you were going to take it, would you do it with phosphatidylserine and obviously for the brain the cognitive benefits?
I think you'd probably, if you're going to do it, do both because they're very intimately related to the membrane. I did a lecture on the cell membrane a couple of months ago in Las Vegas, and I realized how important it is. It's probably what really determines our health more than anything else because it allows things getting in or getting out of the cell, and it's your mitochondria
Right.
membranes.
And does it cross the blood-brain barrier easily?
I believe it does.
The
Yes.
if you have okay, and that what you could get from Thorn Research, right? The
Well, you can
combination
I
of
think you
those
can get
two would probably be
an oral version. We get ours from a compounding pharmacy for the intravenous version of it.
okay. But if you can't get to do an IV and you want to take it
Yeah, take it
routinely
orally.
during your
Again, it's going to be a matter of the pharmacokinetics, how much you're going to absorb. You'll absorb some. Will it be as much as
yeah,
IV? course not, but some is better than none.
So, what's your thinking about the gut-brain barrier, and how are you affecting those two areas, those two organs of the body to improve both gut function and brain function?
Well, I mean, obviously the gut, I think, is the king of everything. I mean, it really determines your health, okay? And so it's so important. And we have some tricks that we do here. Um, one of the things we do is we do a lot of hydrogen gas and we do hydrogen water where we'll bubble the hydrogen gas in the water and have patients drink it immediately. That seems to have very beneficial effects on your gut bacteria. I think
Mhm.
EPO2 can affect the gut bacteria in a very beneficial way also, because again, it helps reduce inflammation. So anything where you're basically reducing inflammation, I think by and large is going to help your gut.
Yeah. So the other thing that we obviously have to address with the gut are digestive enzymes and probiotics. And probiotics are
Yeah,
such an enigma because,
probiotics I take every day.
yeah. However, how do you know you're getting them into the colon where they belong?
I'm assuming, I'm hoping, I'm kind of praying,
And do you do pro and postbiotics, or do you just
No,
do
I just do I
probiotics?
just do I just do the one probiotic and that's it. I mean,
And
you know,
what's the one you like?
I forgot the name of it.
Okay.
Uh, I don't know remember the name, but I think I bought it in Costco of all
Yeah.
places. But I think it's pretty good.
Well, I
You know,
use Pendulum, the Pendulum company from San Francisco. They have a lot of
that
good.
may that may be it. I know it's a lot of. Listen, I can only take so many things. I'm taking about 15 to 20 things already. So
Yeah, me too. Me too. I know. That's why I try to stagger them, because you can't take everything every day. It's too much for your liver.
I made a new rule with myself. On weekends, I'm off all supplements except Neo 40.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I don't take anything.
Right. So let's talk about telomeres for a moment, because telomerase and telomeres are really another hot topic today with DNA methylation and stem cells. And I don't think people really understand what a telomere does. And Bill Andrews was on my podcast, and I've had several people who are dealing with telomeres, but I know you are as well. So why don't you tell us what your attitude and philosophy is. First, tell us what telomeres are.
First of all, Bill's a very good friend of mine, and we had a nice little meeting in Las Vegas a couple months ago. But anyway,
Yeah,
telomere is kind of a DNA. Okay, every time your cell divides, it loses a little snippet of DNA until it gets to a
right,
critical length where then the cell is not going to divide anymore.
right.
Now, we think if we can make telomeres go back in length, that probably is reversing aging, which I suspect is very true.
Yeah,
Now, interestingly enough, there's a compound called telomerase, which is an enzyme,
yeah,
can put this back, but it's very difficult to get to stimulate that. Now, we
yeah,
know certain cells in our body do make it. One cell is your reproductive cells. That's why a man can be 75, 80 years old and still father a child,
yeah,
because his DNA for those, at least those reproductive cells, are still pristine. But
yeah.
there's some controversy about telomerase. Some people say, yeah, but cancer cells make telomerase. That makes them immortal. I'm not going to buy that thing. So how can we make telomerase? How can we make the telomeres grow longer? A couple of
Mm-hmm.
good, interesting studies. There's a good study from the Israelis on hyperbaric oxygen.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what they were showing us is they said, okay, look, go in there for about an hour and a half, and every 15 minutes, take your mask off and just breathe regular,
Mm-hmm.
24% oxygen, and then put your
Mm-hmm.
mask back on. And that basically seemed to increase the length of the telomeres of the immune system.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're really interested in, the immune system. You're only as young or as old as your immune system.
Mm-hmm.
Send that. Remember, your immune system just doesn't fight bacteria. It fights cancers and all kinds of bad things for you. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a very good study with a lot of good science there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, another interesting thing that can be helping your telomeres is intermittent hypoxia therapy.
Mm-hmm. I was just going to ask you about that.
One of my favorite things to do here. So basically, we have a hypoxia machine where I put a mask on, I'm sitting in a chair, relaxing. And basically, it starts varying my oxygen concentration. It goes from 9% to 40%, and it kind of keeps bouncing around. Again,
Mm-hmm.
it's tricking my body to think, hey, there's something going on here because your oxygen is all of a sudden switching around. it puts certain pathways into the milieu more or less and gets them going. So I think that's also, and that's intermittent hypoxia is probably one of the most potent stimulators of our mitochondria that we have. So maybe a good way to kind of think about intermittent hypoxia, it's like training at altitude. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I'll get myself up to where I can be like I'm at 22, 23,000 feet.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of sitting in a chair. I don't have to even exercise, and it's making my mitochondria better. It's making more of them, etc. So I like that technique a lot. And you know, it's interesting. I was giving a lecture actually earlier today. I had to go down to a place, Hollywood, Florida, and someone says, "Yeah, but can't you do the same thing by holding your breath?" I
Mm.
said, you can't do that because you really can't get intermittent hypoxia therapy to work until your blood oxygen goes below 90. You know, most people, when you have a blood oxygen, you register, you look at it, it's like between 96 to 99%.
Right. That's what mine is.
You have to be below 90 for it to have any effect. So it's almost difficult, almost impossible to do that when you're just holding your breath.
So
Not going to happen.
is that a machine that you use in your?
It's a machine that varies the oxygen concentration.
Okay. And so do you also have a molecular hydrogen machine? I know you said you were using
We
it with
do.
the
We have
water.
a molecular hydrogen machine that breaks down the hydrogen,
Yeah.
breaks down the water, I should say, into hydrogen and oxygen. What I like about that is we'll have the patients kind of just sitting there, they have a cannula on, and they're getting an IV of NAD or something
Yeah.
like that. So we're doing the 1-2 punch, so to speak. The reason I like hydrogen so much is the following. Most of your free radicals are made in your mitochondria. That's where the action is, so to speak. And
Right.
most of the antioxidants that we like to use, like vitamin C and things like that, the molecule is too big to get into the mitochondria.
Mm-hmm.
Hydrogen gas, however, has no problem getting in there. So it can really be a very potent anti-inflammatory antioxidant.
Mm-hmm. And there, at all the shows now, there's so many of these machines. I use the Hue Light. I
Yeah,
don't know. Well, Mitch Gann, I
I-
know you know Dr. Gann.
that's the kind we have.
Okay, good.
That's
Yeah,
what I'm
that's the
bringing.
one I like the
Yeah,
best. And
good,
now
good
they
machine.
have, one that's more for consumers. You can buy it and you can set it up in your home. But the big one, the big daddy that they bring to the show, that's always fun to go.
It is.
Uh,
It's a good thing to do. And then, there's hydrogen water. There's a
yeah,
lot of new bottles now. I mean, I've looked into that and I'm probably going to buy one. I think you got to spend a little bit of money in it, maybe $150 or so. But hydrogen
yeah,
water has some benefits because, it can affect your gut bacteria. I think if you're going to go and buy hydrogen water in the store, forget it. The hydrogen's going to all dissipate. But if you make it
exactly.
in there and then you just drink it right away, I think it's going to be beneficial for you.
Well, the other company, one of my sponsors is it's with Quicksilver Scientific is Water and Wellness, and they have both companies sell a hydrogen tablet. So you put it in the morning, you put it in your water or in your whatever you're drinking, and that gives you the hydrogen a hit.
Show me the science. That's all I can
Yeah,
say.
yeah. Well, they've done a lot of research on that little tablet, so that's what I use. Very convenient to use that because you can
Yeah, it is.
travel with it.
I'm a little leery because hydrogen is such a liable thing. It just kind of, evaporates away real quick.
I see. So, all right. So, tell us about intermittent fasting and autophagy and mTOR and why they are so valuable.
All right. So intermittent fasting is what I do 5 days a week. I do about 18 hours.
I do
Um,
too.
I think it's so important because it does do what you call autophagy, where it basically the body kind of patrols and gets rid of cells that are diseased and things like that. It helps us get rid of that. I think it also helps you control your glucose better and things like that. And
Mm-hmm.
that's probably something we can talk about in just a little bit. Um, and so I'm a big fan of it. I think it really is important for people to do. Now, as far as mTOR is a pathway. Um, Now it's interesting. mTOR actually increases cell division and things like that. So
Mm-hmm.
mTOR is not necessarily something for anti-aging because the more you increase your cell division, the faster you're aging. That's why,
So, is that apoptosis when they have the cell turnover, or is that not? Is that
no,
different than cell division?
it increases cell turnover. So you
Okay,
want to sometimes block that, and you have something called rapamycin, which
right.
is a compound. Rapamycin is an interesting compound. It was discovered in Easter Island. Initially, it was used for organ rejection.
Yeah.
And you found, hey, it has this side effect that it increases diminishes the mTOR a bit. So, I think that's important. There's some controversy there. Some people say, well, yeah, but maybe it may predispose you to diabetes or something. It depends maybe on the dosage. I'm not sure. Okay.
Would you, before we go further, could you just tell everybody what mTOR stands for?
Mechanism, mechanism of that excuse me, of the pathway.
Yeah, so it's mechanism, terrain, isn't it, of
Yeah.
rapamycin? That's what
Rapamycin is a blocker of that. Remember now,
yeah,
just like
that,
IGF-1, human growth hormone. People think that's good for anti-aging.
yeah.
Exactly, what it exactly does is it speeds up your aging.
Yeah, and so it's interesting because on the LabCorp blood test, when you're trying to get your level of your growth hormone, they only can test it with IGF-1,
Well,
and
that's the
yet
only thing that's really valid, okay? IGF-1 is the active form of it, okay?
yes.
But again, it's good. I mean, it'll make your bones stronger, it'll make your muscles bigger, but increases cell division. Your telomeres are going to get shorter, so it's not a good thing necessarily.
Mm-hmm. So tell us about the AI and how that's affecting your practice in healthcare.
Well, it's interesting. I'm the oldest in the office by far, but yet I was the first one that kind of discovered AI, and I came and told all the younger people, you're going to have to know this stuff. It's going to be very important. We're going to use it more and more. And I started using it. I started using, I think, Chat GPT,
Me too.
and then I went to Claude. Now my go-to is Perplexity. The, re-
Oh,
the reason I didn't like Chat GPT is because it was making up references. I said, wait a minute, I know that's not right. And I asked it, and it says, oh, I'm sorry, you're right. And I just
oh,
happen to make it up. Whereas
oh,
Perplexity is very specific. It'll give you a reference that you can look up online and verify what it's saying. So
oh,
I really like that a lot. And I use it all the time. I mean, if I want to check something, hey, what about if I do A and B? What happens? And it gives me some ideas.
yeah.
But you have to basically use it as a tool. It's not just to take the place of a physician. It's an adjunct to the physician.
It is, isn't it just fascinating that you can ask a question and a nanosecond later, you have this big long answer, whether it's accurate or not. That's a good, obviously a good
Go to
issue.
Perplexity. It'll be accurate.
Okay, I'm going to do that. Is that a free one like ChatGPT where you just,
You can get a free version, and I was using a free version for quite some time, and then I said, wait a minute. I went to the paid version. I think it was like $200 for the whole year. Way, way better though, because then there's so many more tools with it. But start with
oh,
the free version, really get comfortable with it, make sure you
okay.
like it, and go from there.
So where do you see, let's project into the next 5 years. Where do you see longevity, regenerative medicine in 5 years from now?
I think it'll be something that the next 5 years will be more progress than we've made in the last 50 years, and
Hmm.
probably in the next year or two. I think it's mind-boggling as to what we're going to be able to do with this. It just because it takes out all the scut work. It just basically gives us the essence if you know how to use it, and
Hmm.
you're going to basically use it to design protocols and things like that, and it gives you some of the pitfalls. It just saves you, I think, a lot of time. It's going to save a lot of research time.
Hmm. Yeah, and you're at the forefront. Is Pureform ever going to expand to other places, or is it Boca Raton going to
Yeah,
be?
the idea is yes, we're going to. I mean, in some ways we've expanded by, setting up people for EBO2, but I think the whole concept that we're going to have is going to be expanded. Yes.
So the EBO2, like I can do it here at Jais and Mill Valley. You have a
We've set up a number
connection.
of people there. Yeah, I know we've set up a couple of people out in
Yeah,
that.
so that's how you're expanding it by having the other doctors be
People
trained.
ask me about other things, protocols, and I start giving them some protocols. And then they want to ask me now about plasmapheresis. I'm going to start giving them protocol. Next thing you know, they're going to say, okay, look, we'll make you a little satellite or something.
There you go. Got it. All right. Well, you've been very generous in offering our viewers to have a free consult with you or one of your colleagues. And I
Yes, not a
think,
problem. We do a lot of telehealth, so that's not a problem.
yeah, and are you licensed to be able to do that in other states?
Well, actually, believe it or not, I have a California license also.
Oh, cool. Well, that's where I
I have
am.
a California license and I have a Florida license, but I mean, I have a license in the Caymans. I mean, I don't know what the laws are in other states. I mean, I don't know if there's a problem doing telehealth, but I
Yeah.
don't know.
Well, I wasn't going to get into the political part, but that's so good to know that you have California. Well, we need you to set up a pure farm in California. That would be great.
You never know. Things can happen.
Of course. Okay. So if people use the ageless code and they call this number, which we'll put in the show notes,
Okay.
561 368 1880. That's the number for Pure Form Health. And then
Main number, and that'll get you to wherever you need to be.
yeah, and then you have a email, PURFORM health.com.
That's
So
correct.
that's if you, and just use the ageless code, and you'll be able to get a free consult. Hopefully, it would be with you, Dr. Purita. That's what I would want.
Well, that's
But
fine. They can just ask for me, and I'm more than happy to do it. Doesn't take me that long.
oh, that's so lovely. Well, thank you so much, and I really appreciate you taking the time today to
My
share
pleasure.
your.
It's been an honor. I
Yes.
much enjoyed this.
Well, we will be together, hopefully at A4M if you're going to be there in December.
Should be. I'm actually going to do something for A4M in Geneva. I'm giving a talk.
Oh, cool.
And,
Yeah, I think you know Dr. Goldman. Dr. Goldman, I've known, yeah, you know him very well. I've known
know
him
both of them very well. Yes.
yeah, and I've known him for many, many years. And he and I are about to go on an advisory board together for helping real estate agents, realtors looking for wellness. And I'm a developer by background. I'm not a real estate agent, but I certainly know real estate. So I'm going to be on their advisory board but Dr. Goldman will be as well. And of course, he brings such an incredible wealth of experiences.
Oh, yeah. Good guy. Good guy.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much.
And it's been my pleasure. Thank you so much. And again, it's an honor. Thank you.
Okay.